Excellent. Thank you. I hope you had a good lunch, refreshed. And this session is quite packed. We've got a number of presentations from partners and to enjoy the tools that are being made emerging or there or somewhere in between. So I think because we're a few minutes late, let's get going. We have a clicker for this, and I know we also have colleagues going to join us online, and we have a video as well. So it's a mixed media approach. Hey. So we have a clicker. Thank you. So Amar, you're going to talk us through the first approach, and the floor is yours. Thank you. No, I've got a.
Great. So this is less of a solution or a tool that has already been built, more of a conceptual framework or an approach that we are beginning to put together, mainly to understand from our perspective what are the needs that we will face funding wise in the priority sectors for the Gates Foundation in the next 2 years. And one of the things I would love to do after you hear me both now and in the evening to get your feedback on whether this makes sense and how to actually make it happen. So we are in the early stages of thinking about it. I call it basically the follow the money framework. And it has to do with the events of this year, which is a lot of dramatic reductions in ODA, especially from the US, which is providing about 1/3 of all health ODA around the world for many years. And so it was a huge shock. And in some African countries where we operate, the size of the shock was even bigger than that. So 50, 60, 70% of a disease area spending was coming from USAID. So we basically started to think about what this means. So what I'm going to try to show you is a framework which we are trying to now slowly populate. On the top, on the yellow, once the zoom thing goes away, you can see it's basically what I'm saying is there's ODA cuts that are already taking place. So this is the first part of the cuts. And I said, okay, within the Gates Foundation, what are we doing? So we have all of these partners who are producing research for us, including Seek Development, One Campaign, OECD DAC, IHME, which is Institute for Health Metrics in University of Washington, Seattle, and Aid Data. And what do they focus on? They focus on development finance flows. ODA budget tracking is also something that we do. We look at donor country budgets to find that. And then they find the data source, which are what is the sources of data. They use donor submissions. They use draft donor budgets. Submissions meaning the data that is provided to OECD and IATI. And then what are the key indicators that we use this for, ODA cuts for? It's ODA, other official flows, different types of flow types, total money, recipients, sectors, that kind of thing. But what are the gaps that we know? So here, from our perspective, these are some major gaps that we want to know more information about, which we don't have, which is non-DAC flows. So I know there are 20 countries that report to the CRS, even though they're not DAC members, like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, United Arab Emirates. But we know very little about other official flows, because I've done some quick comparisons between, let's say, Proparco in France, a state-owned agency doing lots of loans or export credits and other activities that are showing up on their annual reports, but not on the CRS. So there are known gaps here. We also know very little about philanthropic flows, which is the private charities. We don't have a good understanding of remittances and foreign direct investments, which are all part of the mix of development statistics. And that's what we worried when the ODA cuts first striked us. Now, the second thing I wanted to show here, if you can get rid of is it possible, or maybe reduce it? I just want to show the title. So here are here's all, this was all about ODA cuts or development finance flows and what we know. This is more about the channels through which money is dispersed. So money
is given out by donor countries. These are the channels through which they go. So the channels could be bilateral, they could be multilateral, could be aid effectiveness statistics. What kind of data sources do we use for those? And now you can see some think tanks are coming in as part of our partnerships. So Center for Global Development, ODI in London. And we are relying on their data analytics and some unofficial data collection efforts that some of these partners are doing. For example, aid data at the College of William and Mary collects data on China's development financing. China is not part of any aid transparency initiative, OECD CRS, or IATI, or anything like that. So they do this unofficial data collection. And we are very interested in 3-digit and 5-digit OECD CRS codes, same thing for IATI. We are not just interested in total numbers, but we are interested in malaria, TB, and other specific priorities, and trying to understand how much each donor is spending on these is another one. But what we don't know is often we don't have complete 5-digit coding provided, even in the best CRS data. The gender markers are very good when it comes to DAC ODA, but as soon as you move away from DAC ODA to non-DAC ODA or DAC non-ODA or non-DAC non-ODA, it becomes very, very incomplete. So these are huge gaps from my perspective. And then the third thing I wanted to add after that was, so we have this gap that is left now with ODA budgets being slashed. We know a little bit about the channels through which the money is coming, but this is a big hole that has been left in the global health system. And then we know that countries are responding. I'm trying to move this. The clicker is stopped working now. Can you move it for me? Then we have the third part of this, which is the response from partner governments. We are anecdotally listening to budget speeches or sometimes draft budgets coming out of African capitals. For example, in this year, we're saying that we have increased our health spending. In Uganda, for example, I remember they said that we're going to increase our health spending from 4% of total health expenditures to 8%. So for us, there is a big hole that has been left. And we now want to know how much are partner countries responding in terms of their own budgets and in their own public finance systems, so that we have an accurate estimate of what is the gap, that we are facing. So here we have a few partners in different countries who are providing us some analytics on that. Here we are interested in own source revenue collection by partner countries, their spending priorities, their debt situation, and reallocation of public funds. Because all of this, to me, is net of these cuts that are being faced. How do we get this information? We get it from early discussions in public decision-making circles, Twitter discussions, parliamentary debate discussions, other things. And then what kind of things are we looking at? We're trying to assess revenue collection, expenditures, budgets across different priorities at the national and the subnational level. But what are the gaps? Again, can you move it forward? There are huge gaps in our understanding of what we call total health expenditures. So while we know a lot about public health spending or budget allocation from countries, we don't know how much the private sector is spending in that country for each disease area, or how much out of pocket is being spent by individuals, or how much insurance premiums are being paid by people. So there is also huge lags in public spending reports. So this leaves us in a situation where we feel that we don't have enough information about the size of the gap that we're being left with, because my part of the foundation is in the business of resource mobilization, and we do a lot of engagements with different donors and try to do Gavi replenishments and global fund replenishments to help fill those gaps. Now, the final part of this, if you can take me to the last part of the slide, is once we have the size of the cuts, and then net of that, we know a little bit more about public finances, then we get into the epidemiological modeling of the human impacts that all of this is going to cut. Because what we're worried about, what we want to advocate for, how many children are at the risk of dying or getting severely malnourished as a result of these funding shortages, because that helps us raise revenues and resources. So here we have a whole host of partners, including Institute for Disease Modeling, IS Global. This is a team that did this now famous article in Lancet a few months ago, which said that USAID cuts alone could result in the deaths of 14 million children. It was all over the media, and this group is going to do more, but they cannot do these modeling projections about human impacts until they know all of this. And my point is that we know a lot more about this and this, then we know about this. And these two things don't talk to each other. It is incredibly challenging to try to figure out what is the size of the hole left in Uganda for malaria or in Kenya for TB control, so that we can then try to fill those gaps. And then we are here focusing on human deaths, or DALIs as we call them. We are also interested in public opinion and perceptions of the budget cuts and what they mean. And of course, again, my point of showing you all of this is that the National Statistics and Budget Offices do not have the kind of data systems that we need in order to integrate this story and give it a complete picture. So as I said, I don't have a tool or a solution or a data product yet, but this is just like a visioning exercise to help us paint a picture. And we are now in the process of trying to fill these gaps. And this is one of the reasons why I'm here, because I wanted to understand from different colleagues who are working on different parts of this as to how we can have these systems talk to each other. So maybe next year when I come, you can put me on the hook for showing you what we come up with once we have a solution. But thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Emma. I think we've got time for a couple of questions as well as an immediate response. So does anyone have a question? And yes, if we stay here and then we'll move to the next one.
It was just asked quickly. Is there, so in the bottom left, you had known gaps. Do you have monitoring in place to assess unknown gaps in the, so what's out there that we're not even aware? Unknown unknowns, to quote Donald Rumsfeld, like what are those? Or is there a kind of process in place for looking at that?
So the way we have started to think, so as soon as the ODA cuts started to come, you have to understand we are a team that has worked for the last 20 years with official donors. And they are a well-oiled machine. They do very good donor relationship work, and they've been quite successful in raising money. But then when ODA cuts came and they realized we don't, like, what do we do? We did this exercise where we tried to see what is the total size of development funding that is available to partner countries. And what we found, if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, from 2018 to 2023, 5 years average, ODA as a percentage of sub-Saharan Africa's GDP is just 2.8%. Domestic resources is almost 18% of GDP, whereas remittances are 3%, philanthropic flows are less than 0.5%. And so we think that we've tried to figure out from FDI to remittances all the money that could be used for development. But I am open to the possibility that there could be other resources that we are not yet capturing as the unknowns. But there's plenty of known unknowns for sure.
Sorry, and I should have asked you this before because we've met before. But international budget partnership and like GPSDD with access to finance and statistical offices, you've had these conversations with them about what visibility they have of the country financial situation through their work?
Yes, so absolutely. They're very important partners to us. And what we're trying to do now is to try to run a couple of pilots in key countries and try to finish this whole thing up watertight as a pilot exercise and see if we can expand on it. My understanding from them is that it's not always clear that they have the information at the right time. Like, for example, for right now, for all the public finance stuff in recipient countries, I rely on the WHO's health GHED data set, and that's 2 years old at this point, maybe even more than that. And now there's worries that there might not be funding available for them to renew it. So budgets are a big part of it. But what I've been told by the IPP folks is that it is incredibly difficult to disentangle what is being spent by which part of the system in any given country, especially in large federal countries like Nigeria, Pakistan, where the provincial governments, the state governments end up spending more sometimes on health than the national government does because of the way the governance system works. I was naive a year ago and I thought that this should be easy and we should know which state in Nigeria or which province in Pakistan spends how much on malaria
it turns out it's not that simple. There's lots of challenges around that.
Not explicitly a question, but more a reflection on the previous session that we had, was that if next year you have figured all of this out, it would be great to integrate that then back into the whole IATI system and start to make some
That's
profile and
exactly right.
recommendations for how we could integrate then everything that you're finding back into IATI itself.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll have to tweak the IATI standard a little bit. With your permission.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much, Emma. Okay, from one emerging tool to another tool that's emerging. I talked about this a little bit this morning, the Dev Explorer tool. Rob, you had a call with Olivier, who's one of the developers. So it's an 8-minute video we're going to watch. I haven't seen this before. I don't know why I should have done, but so play video and then questions we can answer amongst ourselves. But can we play the video, please? Thank you. Oh. Wait.
So, yeah, we built Dev Explorer as a tool that we like to say isn't another chatbot. Not to say that we won't include chatbot functionality down the road, but yeah. So, what is Dev Explorer? What we wanted to do is, work with all of those reports that are written. These are the documents, part of IATI documents that are available, and try and extract insights so that humans could analyze these. And we are doing that by providing an interface where you can search thematically as well as filtering through publishers to create essentially using natural language. For example, East Africa, when we say East Africa, it'll search all of the countries within East Africa. And so we're doing that natural language to filter conversion at this stage. So you'll do a search and you'll essentially build out a workspace. And this workspace is a place for you to gather collect, if we want, all of these programs or activities within IATI, within the space that you filtered through, and then essentially do analyses. So this is a view of a typical workspace of 19 activities. Again, there could be a few hundred in here. And what you want to be then doing is create analysis. And what these analyses are a parallel process which will look at each program, each available document in each program, and do something with it. And it can be an extraction of lessons learned. It could be extraction of particular items or insights within the document. And as you can see here, we did an evidence summary, something focused on gender, or just main challenges. And when you define your analyses, you can choose not only the document types that you want to look at, so maybe pay attention just to annual reports, or maybe the opposite, just look at log frames, or you want to look at all of it, and then you decide what you're looking at through natural language. We have some presets, for example, summary of lessons learned, summary of key challenges, but you can fully write out your own prompt in terms of what you want to extract, and then decide on what the output looks like. And the output is for each and every program, what is it going to look like? So it can be bullet points, could be a long paragraph. So I can show you an example here of a analysis output with each program having, in this case, we asked for bullet points. And what it did was it looked through, in this case, it found in 5 documents, all of these excerpts around key challenges, again, as worded in the prompt. And then what you can do next with this is export potentially this for further work in Excel if you want to dig into each one, but you can also do a analysis across all of these. And so what it would then do is it essentially brings all of these summaries together, and you can provide an overall report, or if you're looking at cross-program themes extraction based on this analysis, you can do that as a next stage. As you see, each statement has a reference point there, number 432, and those are within those references, which links directly to the original document and the page in which it was found. So in terms of the current data we have available, it's mostly with FCDO documents with the British government, and we have also UNDP documents that we've extracted from. The plan down the road is to go with more and more, because obviously there's a lot more documents out there, and work with more publishers to ingest all of those documents and their activities. So we're also looking at an evaluation analysis tool that is going to look at specifically evaluation reports. And so it's a bit more granular in terms of what we're extracting there. And building out connectors as well for anyone who's building their own tools, supporting IATI to connect with AI-ready tools like MCP servers, if you're familiar with that, to tap into the documents, but also the metadata. Dev Explorer is an open source by design. We still have to publish it, so you might not find it in GitHub yet, but stay in touch and we'll give you access as soon as we've cleaned up and documented the open source repository. And that's both the pipelines as well as the actual interface itself. So you can use it as you will under that license. So that's the overview.
Well, that's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about the AI side of it, the models and how you've designed prompts and so on, and how far you've done sort of pre-processing versus things being done live? Yeah, I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Yeah, so the current state of it is that the way we've processed the documents are fairly generic, and that means we're looking at fairly not very granular, but quite broad chunks at the page level, as well as generating document summaries. So we've got two levels of extraction on the documents side of things. We're using the documents to extract some extra metadata for the program itself. So, for example, in the geo space, we're trying to extract. Sometimes not everyone tags the countries within their program, so the IATI country data might not be up to date. So we look at pulling that out as well. But everything else happens on the fly during the analysis approach. So we acknowledge, and that's some of the limitations that we're looking into, is there is a potential risk of hallucinations when you're trying to extract lessons learned. You know, is this truly a lessons learned? And what is it pulling from? And so that's why the traceability is really important for us to show you, look, it's claimed this is a lesson learned. Click on the link, it takes you to page 5 of that report. You know, is that really there? Part of what we're looking at expanding that is literally having the actual excerpt highlighted, so that quite immediately the user can validate themselves where it came from. In terms of the actual language models, we do use larger models. So right now, the extraction for the sort of the named entity extraction type things is a smaller model. We're using Gemini Flash 2.5 for the summarization. For the extraction on the fly. We've actually experimented with 4 or 5 different models. We're trying to find a balance between speed, because, you know, if you're going through 200 programs, you know, potentially, you know, 3,000 reports, it's quite a lot. So so far the Gemini model, so the Google Gemini 2.5 Pro, we yet to test it with Gemini 3 that came out yesterday, but we've experimented with also the open source GPT model, the 120 billion parameter, which is very small, very fast. And so we're also conscious of the impact of some of these larger models. But in terms of when you're trying to extract semantically, the smaller you go with the model, the higher risk you are of getting hallucinations. So we're continuously monitoring which models work best. And down the road, we are hoping to build out a better embedding, like fine-tuning embedding models to do better extraction, so that we can rely on smaller LLMs to be able to do the same quality of task, which is exciting, because then we can go really granular, really small.
That's really exciting. One last question. You talked about activities and documents. We did a state of the data on document links a few months ago, and we found that in lots of cases there's great links, and lots of them, and in some cases the documents just aren't that accessible. Were you able to just use people's IATI activities, or did you need to get documents through other means?
Yeah, no, it's that's the nightmare. Truly, the availability of the documents really is depending on the publisher, and it is very varied. So some organizations make those documents quite easily available through a link to the actual document itself, like the PDF or the ODT or the docx. Others will point you to their website where they have the project, and so then you're looking at the website and then trying to find the document available there. So yeah, the pipeline for that one has been very, very mixed. And so any improvements by publishers to work on making those documents more directly available through direct open links makes a huge difference in the ability to make it AI ready in that sense, and to be able to do this, this type of extraction, at least the ingestion side of it, yeah.
Thank you. We've got a few minutes to talk about this. And when we first started to talk with the FCDO team and Dev Explorer, they were really clear to say that the IATI standard and all that's in the IATI standard helps use those documents that are linked to. And that's what triggered our work around trying to look at those documents, and really interesting to know that they're getting the documents is still an issue. Does anyone have any points about this? Because always documents have been like the cousin of IATI, you know, linked to some documents, but we want the money and the results data. Alex, you use documents a lot. So what, have you got a microphone there? Oh, sorry.
So I was just going to make a comment about this question of documents and accessing documents, because with the Aid Transparency Index, we score organizations. One of the principal things we score organizations on is their publication of documents. And we do find this issue of documents being published in different ways. So in some cases, there's a direct link to the PDF or the document. In other cases, there's a link to a website where you have to search for it, for example. And with the index, we haven't. So some people argue that that's fine, that you're linking to a website and a user can then go and find the document, right? So they're being transparent in that case. But if this is a thing that's going to be an obstacle to LLMs using those documents, then I think maybe we need to think in the Aid Transparency Index team whether or not we raise the standard on those indicators in the index and say, look, you have to link directly to the document. If you don't, then you won't pass that indicator in the index. And you know, I can imagine we might get pushback on that, but maybe this is a good. I mean, we need to be practical as well, right? So,
no, thanks, Ali. In the same way, after the deep dive and this, we also started to revise guidance about document links, including link to the document. So maybe early next year, we can gather around this and see what's good guidance, good practice, particularly with these new use cases. Yeah. The link, you can also take a look at this tool. We can get the link around to everybody. So you create an account and you can search for those activities, generate some analysis. I would recommend that. And last thing to say is that after the initial presentation, it was just FCDO, but Olivier and the team loaded in the UNDP documents. And I think we spoke with UNICEF as well. And they need to do a bit of understanding about what are the templates for the documents. What does a business case look like? A monitoring evaluation report to help train their systems. So it's not a straightforward process, but the more we can work with, they can work with, and we can standardize the best. Any other points or questions about that one? Good. Go ahead, Cuz. Okay, thank you. Sylvain?
Yeah, just one thing that came to my mind was that yesterday morning, Yemi was announcing that IATI is very AI ready, and you know, my own findings plus what we've just heard, plus what you were talking about, is that there are still a lot of points of improvement. And also yesterday you mentioned something about setting up a central managed vector database, for example, for the content of those documents or content of IATI activities themselves. So I do still think that there's a lot of space for improvement there. So I don't know if stating that the IATI is fully AI ready is correct, but I do think that we're definitely on the right track and that there's a lot of ideas floating around that are very positive.
We're on the road to AI ready, I think. Oh yeah, it's a good point. Totally, exactly, yeah. And there was mention there of MCP servers and things that we've been discussing. So again, wind in the sails. Thank you. Okay, so our next emerging tool. This has been proved as a concept. It's OJ. I think you're up next. Can we have the next slide, or will this work? Yes. So this has been a long-standing thing. I think. Can the financial tracking service, humanitarian data, can they work with IATI data? And OJ has some stories to share. Do you want to come? However you're comfortable, OJ. Thank you.
Well, shouldn't make too much of a difference. Well, I did hesitate in the beginning because I knew many good people had tried just since the grand bargain, and well, this is another approach because yeah, please just next slide. We came under pressure last year, us being the member states of the European Union, because the previous reporting routine established by the European Commission a generation ago, I don't know exactly how old it was, but the EDRIS solution was announced to be phased out last July. So, well, I only raised my voice saying that we should consider IATI as a vehicle for future reporting to FTS from member states. Now EDRIS was being phased out. And then I reached out to the community just to know if other peers were available of this or was aware of this challenge. Yeah. So I ended up getting an invitation for a workshop in Istanbul with the IATI Tech team and the FTS team to discuss it. And only there I realized that I had to commit myself to make the analysis necessary to prove any concept for interoperability. And that's, of course, what it's all about. So the perspective, how it differs, my perspective, compared to previous efforts in this area was that we obviously in the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs had to develop another system. So it had a very manual reporting practice in EDRIS, and now we had to come up with something else. And working on a blank sheet might be a benefit sometimes. So I sort of decided that it had to be based on IATI. I didn't consider any options. I knew there would be difficulties, but we had to do it on some platform. So why not use our own data? So we started out, and I claim that it sort of constitutes a proven concept now, because we have been reporting since first quarter this year and monthly since then by the use of this system. But in the analytical process, I had to conclude that we actually, or rather our colleagues in the humanitarian department, had actually tried to report on behalf of our partners in the past in EDRIS. So I had to look at what was actually the nature of these figures reported, and I soon realized that it was actually more budget than it was actual flows being reported. So I dug a few steps deeper. The basic conclusion was that we actually today already have better data from our partners, our immediate partners, to which we deliver unearmarked funds. So we don't have the data OCHA needs, but our partners does. And they, the strategic partners in Denmark, the major Danish civil society organizations already publish in IATI. So looking at just one of those picked by random, I could demonstrate that the data already available in IATI actually was of a better quality than what was previously published in EDRIS. So that was sort of reason to move ahead. There is certain preconditions for this practice, because FTS insists that the reporting must be by someone to them. So they are not prepared to sort of pick data. They are not reaching out to pick data from IATI and digest that anytime soon. So the way to do it must, and just to cut it short, we need a converter. We need to convert data from IATI format to FTS format, and that shouldn't be too difficult because it's from the disaggregate format to an aggregate format. So it should be possible to to define the rules of aggregation in order to convert IATI data into this Excel template used by FTS. That should make it possible for reporters to overcome the other requirements from FTS, because we're talking about a group of organizations which has previously not reported to FTS. So adding their data to FTS would be a benefit in any respect, because they are not there and will not be there unless we provide some assistance. So it's sort of the business case for this ambition is to take the proven concept of our own reporting and build it into the IATI platform as a service available for organizations already publishing in IATI to convert their IATI data into the FTS template. There will be certain preconditions. There are mandatory fields in the FTS, and there's a very complex status coding, defining the different rows in the FTS format by reference not just to the data, but to the previous reporting of the data. So this aggregation is actually quite complicated, but it's not impossible. This tool would make it fairly easy, and I believe, at least speaking from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, that I know that our colleagues or our management will be willing to then be more assertive and say that these organizations must publish to FTS. If they are already publishing in IATI in a sufficient quality to convert to FTS, then that added obligation will not be a major issue. If the converter doesn't work and it would be a separate reporting procedure, it would be a whole other discussion. And I actually, to be frank, I would fear that it would end up as a management decision whether we should enforce them to publish in IATI or report to FTS. So everything is not safe yet, but the opportunity is there. And of course, we have to develop and deploy such a tool. But the concept is proven, and I've taken the liberty also to interpret the lessons learned in this process in order to say something more general nature. When we're talking about interoperability, how are we going to address it regarding other standards? And in most instances, we will have this situation where data is published independently, and we don't know exactly whether it's the same source, because it's very different outputs. So I believe the first step should be similar to what I did in this process, that you need some step of reconciliation to take this different outputs and identify what is actually the differences, because there are many different types of explanation. The one I know by heart is the differences between CLS and IATI, and there are basic structures in the standards that enforce those differences to appear. It's not that anyone has made any mistake, but there's a difference that you should know and know the explanation of. Then we also had the management routines, and I do believe that the experience from Denmark would resonate with most donors, that it's not just different standards, it's also different definitions. In this case, what counts as humanitarian. It is different departments managing the data, not speaking to each other. There are many disconnects, even if we are talking about the same flows, basically. So it needs buy-in from many partners, also the one closest by. And of course, we will get back to the discussion of which best business entity do we actually publish as an activity, because it needs to match the needs to work and to be interoperable with the other standards. If you have chosen the wrong level in the hierarchy of business entities and decided to publish that as an activity, it will be hard to change, and it will be hard to move forward, because you get a mixture of data that you cannot filter out and use, convert to other standards. And then, of course, building a prototype and designing the solution. And then the step, of course, one of the main outputs of this proof of concept was to identify what is not in the IATI standard, because building it as an internal tool, we are able to reach out and pick supplementary data from our internal sources, but that also now helps us to define what do we need to find also in the IATI standard in order to make the conversion tool. Yeah, that's the process so far.
Thank you, OJ. And thank you, OJ, for. We should really thank OJ for really pushing this interoperability issue and insisting on IATI as the source for this. So it's commendable. We talk a lot about publish once, use often, and this here is really into the detail of that. Does anyone have any questions for OJ about where we're at with this or what the next steps are? Has anyone tried to report to FTS? Anushka?
Anushka, Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I know my colleague Pelle actually is also working on this with you and prototyping that reporting tool. And actually before that, indeed, the previous system through the EU was EU would pick up all our IATI data. At the same time, we would get emails, and my colleagues in the different departments would get emails on, please report as well, this is the format. And what would happen next was OCHA saying, we've got this and we've got this document. They're not the same. So with us internally, we are talking with the departments for humanitarian assistance, and they're actually very happy that we're now developing this tool, and the person responsible for doing the OCHA reporting, she's very happy because indeed, there are a few elements that still need to be added, but she says this is really, it used to cost a lot of work because she had to find out which of the activities were all, supposed to be reported. She missed a lot, and then ask all the colleagues, is this okay or not? All that stuff she doesn't have to do anymore. So she's actually, this whole thing that made her very happy and more effective. So I definitely advisable to step in here.
Yeah, hi. Maybe building on this a little bit. I mean, you talked about the sort of role that different definitions or different departments might have in relation to this data. And one of the things I'm interested in is the way that these data definitions and the databases themselves shape the institutions that generate or operate with the data. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how these, the way that different departments work, or that different definitions of particular terminology would be affected by this kind of change.
Well, that is still work in progress, but well, it's a strange thing to say, but it's a silver lining of a very dark cloud, because in the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are under constant pressure for resources. So we are so thinly spread out. So across departments, anybody who has a responsibility to manage data that's used for external communication, whether towards Parliament or CRS or IATI, we know each other. Sometimes it's just me talking to myself, but at least I know the other colleagues in other departments responsible for other areas of the business. So we are under, and has been under, pressure for decades, and that has sort of forced us already into a very, well, to say it positively, well structured, but it's not very rich data set we are able to utilize. But we have been forced to get it well structured, and that has made it easier for us, I believe, to communicate with colleagues in the humanitarian department than it would be in other more well-staffed institutions where people really can work for months without knowing of what's going on in other departments. So, but it's still work in progress because it leads to new questions. So, of course, every month so far, it's still me sending the report to OCHA. So it hasn't been handed over completely to the colleagues in the humanitarian department, but we have a monthly QA where I send the report to them and they give feedback. And we still experience very strange constellations of data, which might take hours to digest in order to work out, well, it's actually correct, but it's just these status coding and the definition of roles in the FTS that is so strange in many respects. So it takes time to reconstruct, well, it's actually these data now being presented like that. So that's actually a positive side effect, I think, that we maintain contact and in dialogue, because they surely share the aspiration for an efficient management of data and also having this opportunity to rely on support from colleagues in other departments if anything should happen to go wrong. So the humanitarian funding is actually the element of Danish order that is most exposed in Parliament and subject to constant questions. So they are under pressure, my colleagues, to deliver data on a regular basis as reply to questions in Parliament. So being understaffed, we are sort of pushed together.
So that would imply then that these kind of conversion tools might actually be useful if it actually lays out the steps by which it converts from one format to another. I mean, maybe if there was some sort of transparent sort of step-by-step explanation of the conversion from one format to another, that would save some of these struggles.
Yeah. Part of the documentation is, of course, the interpretation of what does it actually mean, because you have some guidance in the FTS format on the status coding and so on, but what does that actually mean? So that is obviously a translation that needs to be available.
To add to that, we've also looked at how we could use things like the IATI rules and validator for people to check if their IATI can meet the rules to be converted. So that we have the infrastructure in place for this, but it gets quite complicated quite quickly. So the thing we're holding up is the prototype and the process OJ and colleagues are going through to understand and refine those rules, for example. Bibishan? And then
you, Stephen, as well, which is like, I remember I did a bit of work on that as well, but we did a pilot on, and I think there was a lot of work done on FTS data ingestion, IATI data ingestion into FTS kind of thing. So this piece of work, is there like, have we tried to link together like the learning from that pilot? And, the only thing that I'm concerned about is like, have we parked that and starting all over again, or like how do we see that linkage?
No, thank you, Bibishan. That is true that Young Innovations built an IATI ingestion tool for FDS, but I think the big assumption or mistake there was the word automation. So the assumption that you could press a button and IATI data would go in and magically appear in FDS. And when I spent time in Geneva with FDS, it's very clear automation is not their main workflow. So I think we had to take a step back and realize actually that the structure, the content of IATI data can be useful to FDS, but we need some steps in between to deliver them the data to use in their own workflow. And I think it was just learning from that. Yeah. But definitely to connect them up, most certainly. Okay. Any other thing? Good. Thank you, OJ. Thank you. So now, colleagues, Mateus from BMZ, and I believe Fabio is online. And Mateus, are you going to pick?
Can you hear me?
We'll start with the video, and this is another. Okay. Okay. Let's go for it. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me, Stephen?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, my sound might not be the best. We have some internet issues here. Yeah, so thanks so much for the chance, being here today. And yeah, it's a bummer I cannot be there in person, but we just want to give you a short glimpse on what we are currently working on, and yeah, on our one AI tool that we are currently developing, and it's called Jackie. And it's kind of, yeah, maybe perhaps not an AI assistant strictly, but we use it for our IATI projects. And yeah, we will be delighted to show it to you today. So if you can just go to the next slide, please. And I think you will just to the next slide, if possible. Yeah, that is also Jackie that you can see here. Just a quick reminder. Yeah, exactly. So this year in June, also at the IATI event, we kind of showed already the original Jackie, and you will quickly see it also today. And we've made some improvements ever since. But just a quick reminder. So for us, and I think this really has been mentioned today quite a lot, right? Like data quality is really key for us in the IATI community, and I think also the project descriptions are really necessarily important, and also important for showcasing kind of what this project is about. And given also that we had some issues in the past with our project description, we were thinking, okay, how can we basically make sure, right, that our project description are really of a high quality and understandable for everyone, with and without development cooperation experience. And hence, this was, with this idea in mind, we kind of developed a very basic, I would say, AI-supported application that evaluates process descriptions and provides also quick and concrete feedback for improvement, helping us then also on what we are going to see today. If you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, I guess this is a no-brainer, but just, nonetheless, when working on data quality, actually it was much harder than we initially thought, right? We thought like, yeah, everyone agrees upon that good data is the data quality is important, but actually there is not really this culture, I would say, of data quality, or the willingness also sometimes to improve it, because folks, they have their work, they just input the data, the description. There's so much perhaps sometimes also in their projects that they sometimes, don't take a necessary step back to really see what they've been writing when it comes to project description, other kinds of descriptions about projects. And hence we think, this requires really training and awareness raising, and it's also very collaborative. And but we also think that AI can help here and make our lives easier, for both data quality and then also perhaps more the bureaucratic path that we have when it comes also to the IATI standard. If you can go to the next slide then. And now, why do we call it Jackie Plus? Because we use the technology that we developed, and you will see it in a second, also to see whether we can use it, for different tasks. And I think today we have heard a lot about the importance of policy markers, sector codes, etc. We also developed our own BMZ keywords where we can also address certain, like projects, or can identify projects that perhaps don't fall within like the sector codes and the policy markers. And we thought, okay, we use the same technology in order to let the AI kind of give us hints in which direction this can go. And we also think this can really help us and also our colleagues, to be time saver, because folks spend a lot of money, looking into, okay, this is like policy marker A, B, C, D, E, the sector codes, etc. And with the support perhaps also of AI, this can, make things better. And then, you will see this in a second. And then also afterwards, we give you a short insights when we compare it like human assigned vis-a-vis machine assigned policy markers in this case. If you can go to the next slide, please. So here very quickly also what we use now for our tool. So we have an open LLM, or like open weighted LLM 5.4 of Microsoft, which worked pretty well. It's perhaps not the best open open model out there, but it does its job fairly well. We used Streamlit, so a Python application, and also for us, it's very important that we want to bring our tools to our to our colleagues and not the other way around. So really try to embed it on into the systems they're already used to. So when they kind of write down their description of different projects, that they are, they have access to the tool. So that's also always in the back of our minds when we develop these tools. And I would say without further ado, I would hand over to Mathis, who can give you a quick show of the tool. Over to you, Mathis. Thank you.
Video, is it working? Yeah, perfect. Could you then please switch to the video? So yeah, we thought it's maybe a good idea not to only introduce it like verbally, but also to show a little bit what it looks like. And this is why we have recorded a brief video of about 3 minutes only, but to walk you through a little bit through the different functions. All right, so what you see here is the environment which we have. So we have added all the new functionalities which Fabio has briefly introduced into that original environment of the Checky. So did it already start? I think not. Great, thanks a lot. So at the left, you see the different functions that have been added. For the project description, I think maybe you still recall it from Fabio's presentation some months ago. Just to recall how it looks like. So here you can insert any project description and then get a direct feedback of like how it's rated by the LLM based on different criteria. So we have formal criteria, but also content related ones. You also get like a grading and like justifications of why the different scores have been assigned. So that's like a brief feedback for people directly to see what is maybe wrong in the project description to correct it. Next functionality is the assignment of keywords. So we have first automatically and then also manually created a list of 200 keywords. And now the LLM here is assigning up to 10 of them and also giving a relevant score for each of them. So on a score from 1 to 5, 5 being like highly relevant and 1 being more or less relevant. So this is now in German, I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean, here you can see how it would look like. It's also then possible to do this for a whole data set. So you can upload a full data set of measure descriptions. And as you see here, you get then like keywords for all of the measures. You can also filter by different keywords. You can see here in this text field. So you only see the measures which are, for example, characterized by the keyword of renewable energies. And then you can also, as you see on the bottom, you can download it and then see what you want to further do with it. The next functionality is the prediction of the DAC sector codes at the 5-digit level. So once again, the same logic. So you insert a project description and you get a prediction of which sectors are best fitting. So here in this case, now you see it's 2 sectors which are suggested because we can, of course, have more than one. You see the, how it's called, the digits, and also a justification why the LLM has assigned the specific sector. So you can then think also if it makes sense or maybe if it doesn't make sense, what has been assigned. And the last one is the assignment of policy markers, which, is upcoming. So here the LLM is suggesting or giving like a grading, is assigning the relevant scores of all the 13 policy markers which we have. So it's giving here either the code of 0, not relevant, 1, which is like significant target, or 2, the principal target. Like in this case now for this example, you see there's 3 markers with a high relevance. And this is also possible for whole data sets. And then you can filter by different markers and see like which projects actually have either relevance 1 or 2. for this specific marker. Yeah, that's already it for that brief demo. So if you could please change back to the slides, then we can quickly say something about the performance of how well it works. Okay, that was loud. So we then, as I said, we did an assessment of the accuracy of the different assignments. So we did this in the first place now for the policy markers only, where we took a set of 1,000 data sets and then checked in how many cases the AI predictions or the AI classification coincided with the already existent human assigned codes. As you can see here on the right in the diagram, we have quite a high accuracy score, I would say, of around 80% for relevance levels 0, so being not relevant, and 2, so for the principal targets. But as you also see in the middle, for the level 1 policy marker, it doesn't perform very well, so we have only accuracy of 20%. But yeah, there can be different reasons for it, but at least it shows that then either like the project description itself is not maybe capturing that marker, or that for some reason the classification doesn't work very well. And then, yeah, just that brings us to our learnings already. Yeah, so like at least for the first assessment for the policy markers, we saw that the AI can like be helpful for assisting at least to assign policy markers, but of course the database is very important. So as you saw for this for the code 1, the performance was very low, which can be because it was based on the project descriptions and they maybe don't cover certain targets of the activity. Yeah, what's like our baseline or our like principal insight would be that the AI should never do any decisions or assignments alone, but it should rather be like support for humans. So it should be like like a decision based on AI and the human, but not the AI alone. And yeah, the last thing is that now what you saw was basically the code which is lying behind it is really quite simple. So it was based all on the original checking. We just changed a bit the prompt, the output format, and so on. So it was like once the code is there, it's quite easy to apply it to several other use cases. And that's why we would also like to offer to you, if anyone of you is interested in taking the code and working further with it, we're happy to share it. And yeah, so you can maybe also make use of it, because it's like a pity if many people are actually doing kind of the same work. Yeah, and with that, I'll finish for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It looks as well, because you demonstrated this in July, and since July you've really developed it and changed it and used it.
Yeah, that's it. Really? Yeah. I mean, but as said, like it was because we already had that code for the checking. I mean, of course, you have to validate it, you have to test and see how it performs. But yeah, it's not that much work once you have the code and you can just go adding functions. Yeah.
Got a question online?
Yeah. Oh, that was loud, wasn't it? Okay. So Seam is asking under what license it's distributed, please.
The code is free to share with anyone. Yeah, so we can. Or do you mean the model license? Because it's also an open model. Yeah. So you can have the code and work with it. There's no license.
Thank you. So last but no means least at all, we're going to look at dashboards within Floor and the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. Go.
And I've got a lot of slides.
So I hope this thing is working. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of clicking there. But my name is Floor. For those who do not know me, I'm Floor. I work at the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. We're implementing programs for the MFA. I'm coordinating a data cluster. And I'm going to talk about dashboards. So maybe not an emerging tool, maybe not as innovative as the other tools, but I hope some of you can relate to it and get some insights as well on the things that we have learned. And I have to also give a shout out to my colleague Marjolein, who's online in the call with us, but she did a lot of the work. So these are actually her dashboards. So it's a bit, I'm talking in behalf of her as well. But I wanted to, actually the story that I want to talk to you about is not really about the dashboards itself, but it's also about how we were focusing a lot on publishing and driving data quality, and how we are now more focusing on data using, which is actually driving data quality way more than the focus on data quality before. So that is a big insight, and I hope I can share that story with you. This started like years ago. We have been using data for years and years, but this actual project started, the microphone is sometimes going louder and louder, but this project actually started last year when Marjolein came to me and she was like, okay, I know that we have IATI data. I know we have all these large Excel files. This is actually like the internal IATI data that we were working on with embassies to see how we can align programs that are better, better aligned with existing initiatives. But can we do something more than that? So that was kind of the question. And to start thinking about, I'm not sure if is the microphone working or, yeah, okay, sorry. To start thinking about how we can visualize more things. And she came to me in a time that was, in the time that there was a new policy brief from the Dutch ministry. So we were thinking about how can we make the IATI data more interesting to Dutch policy makers and to also the embassies that we are working with. So there were actually, it's some code, but it's just like to show you how we translated actually the IATI data to things that were more interesting. And we went from like these Excel sheets, which is exactly the same information, to these nice pie charts and visualizations. And people got really, really enthusiastic. And I was like, yeah, but we had this data before and we knew all of this. But this spoke way more to them than that. And we really saw there was so much enthusiasm to really use the data that we have been publishing for such a long time already. So that was interesting. So we were still just working with our own data. So we're working with internal systems here. And we saw that colleagues were really engaging with the data. So they were looking at the dashboards, they were looking at their own data actually, and they were like, huh, but this location is not right, this sector is not right. And I was like, yeah, it's you who put it there, but they really spotted inconsistencies, which really led to significant improvements in our own data quality. So that was a big win for us, and it was really an insight for me as well. And it sparked enthusiasm for IATI, which was a little bit of a surprise, because I must say that although I'm always very enthusiastic about IATI, like some of my colleagues, they see IATI more as a burden than as an asset. Now they were coming up to me with like, IATI, that is this broad data set, right? So there's more data in there, there's more partners in there. Can we show something about that as well? I was like, okay, this is new to me. People are getting enthusiastic about IATI. So we started adding IATI data actually manually with the Excel files. I think we started adding MFA data and some other partners. That was interesting. But then at one point we're like, okay, this is way too much work manually. We need to do something more like integrating. We want to unlock the whole data set. And that's what we are trying to do now. So now we're trying to unlock the whole IATI data set in our own data warehouse, which is in Databricks. Not going into detail with this, but we built together with the data departments, so like the more tech people, we build a data model to kind of see what is interesting for us to show and to draw upon, so that we can build more dashboards. It actually worked. So now we unlocked all of these data, which is really interesting and really exciting for us, and we can really work easily with it now.
although it also comes with some challenges. And that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about today as well, because I know there's a lot of expertise in this room, so you might have some solutions for us as well. So we went actually from this, which was like the manual dashboard, to a lot of data, and we need to make decisions on what to show because we cannot show everything. So we're kind of focusing on Dutch programming. But this is really, we're trying to do this together with the MSCs, together with the colleagues that are working with the dashboard. So this is like kind of the progress that what we are doing now, actually. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to say this one. But data quality, and for us, especially the organizational data, needs improvement for the data model. Like our tech department was like, this is quite interesting to work with. Like unique identifiers for organizations would be a great asset. But I know some of you are laughing. You're like, but I'm just gonna say it as well. And this one is interesting as well. So we are working with our own dashboards. And my colleagues, they spot inconsistencies. And I think it's mostly about location. So they know a project is not in the capital city, but it is in a capital city in IATI. And we are not in charge of that data. So we cannot control the source of that data. So we actually would like to change it or add some data in our own data warehouse, which is also quite a technical challenge as well. So if people have any ideas or tips on that one, that would also be very interesting for me to talk to you about. Yeah, they came up with some solutions, but they have to be user-friendly as well. So that's always a little bit the balance. And I want to kind of end with the last thing is that the real challenge will be whether we truly dare to make more data-driven decisions in the future. We are really in the process of kind of implementing these dashboards, making people enthusiastic. I don't think there's actually it didn't change decision making yet, I think, and I'm not sure we can pinpoint decisions that have been influenced by IATI data. I think it's always like a number of things. But it would be great if we could leverage and unlock the IATI data set to really help our colleagues to be able to make more informed decisions. Yeah, actually, I already knew that I would be on time because I knew it wasn't 10 minutes, but that's my email address. I hope I kind of showed you what we did the last few months, actually. Marjolein is also in the call. And if you have any questions or tips or discussions, please contact me and I'm always happy to share and happy to have a discussion with you. That's it.
And exactly on time, thank you. But I think any questions or tips whilst we're together in the room? Anushka? Yep. It's for the online.
Oh, for the online. Oh, sorry. Sorry for the online people. I had a question about when you said the geolocation is not in that right location. Does it then count for activities which are yours, or does it count for activities that are from others?
Sometimes it's ours, but ours we can control. So that's actually what we found as a massive, significant increase, that colleagues would actually look at the projects and they are really interested in how projects spread out in the country. And they change the locations in our own systems. And we always say, please change the source and don't change something and like after the source. So that's fine. But if things are not right in, I don't think MFA data is a good example, but there are some partners that we also manually included where we can see that the locations are not right or other data is not right. And we cannot include, we cannot control the source. So that's more the challenge than our own data. Yeah.
Have you considered something like an inference system that sits in between, where you take for example, if you're talking about locations and you're saying, okay, these organizations are always providing it in a different way that doesn't fit with our system, that you put a little in-between step where you integrate whatever is in their system and you convert it to whatever you need from your own system?
Yeah, we're looking at solutions like this. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I don't think it's about different systems. I think it's really about inconsistencies and data errors. So, or maybe some projects are not as accurate on their location data. So I'm not sure if this is
Okay, one more.
Well, I think we've been calling for it since yesterday morning. Let's keep in touch about this together and tell each other, I've seen your data. Could you please improve this and this and this? Because I saw exactly in that activity this and this and this happening. And what I've noticed when working with our partners, well, I've got colleagues who are not always as looking into the data of our partners. They're very happy that someone notices that they've done a publication. So please get in touch with them. And if you can't get in touch with them, try to find any of us who know to get in touch with them. We had Mark actually, I think, beginning of this year, contacting us saying one of your partners had a transfer of like 80 billion euros coming from you. And we're like, no, well, we don't have that much money, so that's not a possibility. But we could contact that partner and say, okay, this is what someone else has seen in your, to please improve it. And they improved it. And then now that's consistent again. So let's you know, that it's a call in any case. Let's keep in touch with each other.
Thank you. Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I had a very good conversation over lunch with a colleague from Gambia who asked the same question, but doesn't know who to contact. And so we'll talk briefly in the next session about changes we're making, but we really need to have ownership of the data to make that contact too, I think. Okay, we're bang on time, so we're going to finish now. Thank you again to Floor. And thank you